Guys, I'm going to do a bit of a backstep here. Let's go up to the top. Tim's been asking me some questions about, hey, how do I get people into this game, into this setting? What's my hook? What's my advertisement? I don't really have one, or at least I don't have a very positive one. It's almost more like saying, hey, this car doesn't break. Hey, this car can get you from place to place. I don't think it's because I don't think much of my setting. It's just, I guess, because I tend to fight, some tropes. I wanted to make sure that they could kind of think fantasy, but don't think this. And I also think it's because just the environment I was in. So, my role-playing group really didn't change much. My role-playing group coalesced around the folks on the guy and the gals dorm floors of the dorm that I lived in, freshman year of college. Changed maybe, 3 years later, as people dropped out and moved away from town and things like that. So as we all made friends in other places who were into role playing, then we'd bring them in. But basically, we had like the same core group of people in that town. And then when I moved from Missouri to Nebraska, eventually I found some role players, and that group didn't change a whole lot. It was, and then until I made some whole new, brand new role players, right? Like reference throwing a whole bunch of noobs into Rollmaster for their first role playing game. I made a whole bunch of new players. So, anyways, so especially with that, for instance, that latter group, I was the GM, right? Because no one else even knew anything about role playing games. So it's like, well, you're in my setting. And back in Missouri, around college and those friends, it was, hey, who wants to GM? What system do we want to play? It really wasn't so much of a question of setting usually. So I usually did stuff like, hey, I do have a fantasy setting, and while I am using Rollmaster, do not think Middle Earth, okay? Except for the rarity of magic or stuff like that. I would say, no, you cannot play orcs. Money is sparse. You will not be rolling in gold and buying a bunch of upgrades. People work for a living and spend most of their money, or not even money, but bartering, making do. Hey, halflings are not Middle Earth halflings. There are female dwarfs, things like that I've kind of mentioned in the other videos. Here's roughly how I would sell it now. Okay, I still don't have a name for the setting, but I've created a setting that, while you can go about an adventure in the way of defeating some baddies and, going out and fighting endless hordes of orcs and goblins, there's also things to discover. I've placed plots and I've placed secrets, even all the way up to the cosmological level, around everywhere. So we can play around those areas where you might stumble into a secret. Just let me know what else you're interested in, right? And then I could have placed them in a particular place. I was thinking about it on the way over here. I'm waiting to pick up Ribbit. I didn't really have a whole lot of secrets for low-level characters, which, from a simulationist perspective, makes sense. If a low-level character could figure it out, it's not a secret anymore. Someone else has already figured it out. I think that's part of the problem with the simulationist thing, is that you can't make really amazing discoveries or do really amazing things at low level, because you're just learning to get by. Like, you're just learning not to die in that fight with that thingamabob over there, I was about to say bugbear for some reason. That's a very D&D thing. I think I might have described, that might have been one of those negative statements that I described my world in, is that there isn't a whole lot of fantasy creatures. I don't like a lot of the creations that are involved in Dungeons & Dragons / Pathfinder. It bothers the simulationist in me, right? Like, what's the ecology, right? Like, I would have been one of those players had I been older, a little older than I am, and been one of those people growing up playing D&D and getting involved, and I would have been one of those people saying, those goblins in those caves, like, what are they eating? Why are they there? Where do they go to the bathroom? I would have been one of those people asking those questions. So, and that's actually one of the difficulties I have, because I do want to I sometimes want to kind of make a version 2 of my world. Sorry for the shaking. I'm just holding my camera with my hand, so as I emphasize, it goes around a bit. Sorry. Sometimes I want to go back and revisit my world creation and redesign it a bit to be higher fantasy, to be a bit more higher fantasy. I'm not looking for up here, but right now it's down here, and I want to kind of get it to there, right? But I look at the sources of creatures, even for inspirations, not just within the Rolemaster system, but just even inspirationally. And I'm just bothered by them a lot. Like, oh, I can't. No, I'm not bringing that in. Nope, not bringing that in. Nope, not bringing that in. Not as things that are just around the place, right? I can get by with this thing or that thing being an abominable amalgamation of this creature and that creature, but that means there's some magic user doing that, creating that. It's not out running in the wild. And the reason for that, I'll get to in the next races video. I'll touch on that a little bit. But there's a reason why that isn't so. Why you couldn't just make bugbears, let's take for instance. Why some wizard couldn't have just like and mashed the two things together and twisted the form and have a male and female get loose, and now you've got a wild bugbear population. There's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in another video. Probably the next one. It'll probably be 2.8.5? Yeah, 2.8.5 is what it should be. So that's it. So my pitch would basically be, hey, low fantasy, but lots of secrets to discover and plots that I've tried to seed here and there. What's your interest in? Let's find a place to put you. Okay, so that would kind of be the pitch, I guess. See you guys later.